Happy Bitcoin Friday, freaks. It's your boy Odell here from the studio for another Citadel Dispatch. Got a great group of guests here. I'm really excited about it. But before we get there, I want to thank all the freaks who continue to support the show, keep it ad-free and sponsor-free, focus purely on actionable discussion. The show wouldn't be possible without you. The easiest way to support the show is through podcasting 2.0 apps like Fountain Podcasts, Breeze, and podverse.fm. You simply install the app. Podverse is actually a website that you can use in the browser. Load it up with sats, search Citadel Dispatch, press subscribe, pick how many sats per minute you think the show is worth, and then as you listen, the sats stream directly to my node. It's pretty fucking cool. I see almost every minute of every day I see sats streaming into my node, and it's extremely empowering, and I love you all. Thank you. I also want to thank all the freaks who continue to join us in the live chat. Dispatch is broadcast via Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Bitcoin TV. If you use Twitter, Twitch, or YouTube, you can participate in the live chat from there. If you use Bitcoin TV, you can participate through our Matrix chat, which you can find at citadeldispatch.com. It's been a long day. Sorry, freaks. So also, you can support the show via Paynim. My Paynim's Odell, or the BTC Pay server located at citadeldispatch.com, all through Bitcoin, which makes this all possible. If you don't have sats to spare, I know it is a bear market and potentially a global macro recession. It really does help if you subscribe in your favorite podcast app, potentially leave a review. But I did forget, there is another feature on Podcasting 2.0 called Boostograms. And if you do a Boostogram, it's a one-time payment and you're able to attach a message. As always, I will read the 4 highest Boostograms that we received on the last episode. If you don't hear yours read or you're curious on what other ones are there, you can actually look up all the Boostograms via Fountain Podcasts. The top one was from Mallard Quackenbush, 40,000 sats. He says, "These conversations about Bitcoin privacy make me nervous. I wonder if perhaps there is some merit to Monero. I love it if you could get into the Bitcoin versus Monero debate one day. I'm finding Seth's unrebutted contentions increasingly persuasive, to be honest." Okay, well, thank you for using Lightning to show Monero on the show and support it. We have Chad Farrow, 33,000 sats, saying, "Keep up the great work." We have Nomad Joe with 4,000 sats saying, "Quality content." And we have Kaz P-Land saying, "Like the open source splits." Yes, that's a good reminder. When you support Dispatch, you also support some of the best open source projects in the space, including Raspberry Blitz, RoboSats, Seed Signer, Sparrow Wallet, and Zeus. They all get direct splits to their node as well as you support the show, which is pretty fucking cool. And I've been told by a lot of the Podcasting 2.0 devs that I added too many splits, but I like to push limits, so it is what it is. It seems like they're coming through. Okay, so with all that said, we have a great group of people in the studio. It's been a really fun week, very special week at Bitcoin Park here in Nashville. So I got some of the guys in here for this rip. We're going to be focusing on Bitcoin payments, but I think this is going to be a more wide-reaching discussion. For starters, we have UTXO Club here, return guest on the show, even though he changed his handle. Am I allowed to say what?
Oh, yeah. CoinJoiner was the old one.
Yeah, he's the lead maintainer of SatSale. He was on our crowdfunding dispatch, Citadel Dispatch 57. Welcome to Nashville. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's so awesome here. If anyone's thinking about checking out Bitcoin Park, I highly recommend it. You can make a pilgrimage like I have from all over the world, and it's awesome. It's incredible to see what's going on here. So yeah, thanks for having me, freaks.
I got to meet him for the first time 2 days ago. I got very excited about it. He surprised me. He didn't tell me he was coming.
Yeah.
We also have return guest Wiz in the house. So we got one guy from Australia, one guy from Tokyo. How's it going, Wiz?
Hey, what's up, Matt? Thanks for having me on the show again. It's a pleasure to be back here in Nashville at the world famous Bitcoin Park, which, of course, is much better than any other park.
Wow, really huge endorsement. Thank you. I guess everyone's return guest. We have return guest Michael from Oshi. How's it going, Michael?
This is going great. It's awesome to be back. This like Nashville Bitcoin community magnet here kind of pulls me away every now and again. So
yeah, I love it. You and your lady seem to be constant guests over here, and I love to see it. I want to see it more.
That's right.
And we have the famous chain surveillance guy, Ben the Carmen. How's it going, Ben?
Doing well. So happy to be in the park and talk about chain surveillance.
Where'd you find your love for chain surveillance?
Well, I started working at Wasabi like 3 years ago. It's been a tale ever since.
We started off spicy, but the joke is that Ben said he's going to quit his job at the Bitcoin company if they add chain surveillance. So he's now the chain surveillance guy. So guys, I don't know where we want to start. We have a great crew here. As always, freaks, feel free to put your questions in the chat, your comments in the chat. We will bounce off of them and respond to them as they come. I'd like to start with Wiz. Wiz, you made some big announcements here. I don't know which ones you want to be public, but you want to share the ones that are to be public?
Oh, yeah. So we had this really cool meetup last night at Bitcoin Park. About what would you say, like 200 people attended the Nashville Bitcoin.
More than that, maybe 250.
It was packed, and did a nice talk where we announced that Mempool Space is going to be adding a Lightning Explorer among other really cool features, which we will, I guess, go into detail probably a little bit later in the show, maybe if we have time. But yeah, that's Lightning. I mean, I don't know what do you guys think? Is Lightning cool? Do you use it for payments? Like,
it's all right.
Sorry.
I thought there was an interesting thing that you said about how you view the mempool project, where you said that it's going to cover all layers of Bitcoin. So you have layer 0, which you consider mempools around the world, and then layer 1 is on chain. And then layer 2 is Lightning and Liquid, and then potentially some kind of layer 3 support in the future. You add that as many layers as there are mempool would be an explorer for.
Yeah, it's always been the stated mission of the Mempool open source project to help the Bitcoin community transition into this multi-layer ecosystem and to be able to implement a multi-layer, basically the first multi-layer explorer where, for example, if you're viewing a transaction on Mempool Space and it's identified as the funding channel or closing channel for a Lightning Explorer, then you're going to be able to just click on that and be taken to the Lightning Explorer portion of the Mempool Space website, where you'll be able to see details on the node or channels or whatever else you want to explore in that second layer. Yeah.
Fuck yes. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so with mempool, like when you're adding that sort of Lightning stuff that like anyone can see, what's a channel open or a channel close, do you have any like concerns that that's sort of decreasing user privacy a little bit, or is it sort of like that privacy was already broken? It's just that you're sort of democratizing it and making it sort of understandable for everyone that their privacy might be bad in certain situations.
Well, we're not visualizing anything that's not already public, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's just that maybe there aren't so many Lightning Explorers out there yet, and that's why people might think that Lightning is very, very private when actually most of it is entirely public, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, you can see the entire graph of the network. You can see all of the nodes, and if they're not Tor only nodes, you can also see their IP addresses, which you can then resolve to geographical locations and city names and see what ISPs or hosting providers that the nodes are on. And then you can, just start to connect all of the information and visualize it on a website for everyone to easily explore. And so it's not that everything is suddenly not private anymore. We're just making a cool little website where you can explore it on your own. And of course, you'll be able to, you already have all of this data inside your own Bitcoin node, inside your own Lightning node. We're just giving you this web interface that indexes everything and presents it in a slick UI.
So it could be good for users. They can check out their own privacy. Like they can see that maybe their UTXOs might be linked to their IP address if they're running a ClearNet Lightning node. And then they can sort of, see which transactions are linked to that IP and sort of make decisions and try and improve their setup based around that.
Absolutely. Of course, if you're going for a private node, then you probably want to stick to Tor only. I mean, if you have a ClearNet node, then yeah, you're going to be connecting it to all of your on-chain transactions and see what city someone's in. What do you think, Ben? You're a chain analysis expert.
I think it's really smart because like chain analysis has talked about how they're doing like lightning analysis. So like we know they're doing it already, but like there's no real tool to like show a user like this is what they can see. It's like it's easy to go to like mempool space and see like, oh look, I can just keep clicking on these transactions and go back and see your whole history and like, look, now I see you have 3 Bitcoin or whatever. But you can't really do that with Lightning today. You can maybe go on Amboss space and like kind of see it, but it's a little tricky and it's not as clear versus like when you have it directly linked in mempool space, you're like, here's a transaction I can click, here's your Lightning node, and I see you have this much capacity and all this stuff. So it really lets you like break down to like a simpler user, like this is your like threat model and all that stuff. So I think it's smart. And like I know like personally, I remember tweeting at you guys like we're gonna add a feature like this because it'd be cool because Dustin, who works on Core Lightning, was doing splicing and he's like I did one on mainnet and I saw he tweeted out the transaction. I'm like, oh, if I want to see the channel, like where's that on Lightning? And like I found I had to like manually calculate the channel ID and then type it into like 1ML, and that's it's a nightmare versus like you have a one-click button, which is super cool on mempool.
And I would just say perhaps kind of democratizing this would maybe hinder the chain analysis company themselves, because it's like, hey, like you're over here doing it yourself, like they wouldn't have some sort of like monopoly on that. Is that fair to say?
Right.
I mean, even further than that, I mean, the cool thing about mempool to me is that it is this open source project, right? So you have mempool, the open source project, and then you have mempool.space, which is Wiz's mempool that he hosts on his servers, right? And the mempool open source project, you can actually run on all these different node projects relatively easy, even including like the really easy ones, like the Umbrals and the Start9s. And you just like press install, and then it just uses your own node, and you get all that data in an easy to visualize way. Like that data, like Wiz didn't create that data. That data is already there. He's just providing you a tool that you can view it on your own terms and know what kind of data you're leaking. Because I actually had a similar concern as the first thought I had when he was doing the presentation, which by the way was a fucking awesome presentation. I've seen a lot of your presentations. You're getting better. This was one of the best ones. I was like, oh shit, like it literally, because you have everything integrated there, you can see the channel open, you can click into it, you can see the UTXO history, you can go through all the things. And the first thing is obviously you think of privacy, right? But that information is already there. So it's good that users are able to actually visualize it and see what kind of data they're leaking. Because when you're talking about specifically digital privacy, the first step to improving your digital privacy is understanding what you're leaking, what data is out there in the first place, so you can actually try and improve it, right?
It was also really interesting to see that project by Tony that actually doxes all of the private Lightning channels, which are obviously not.
Yeah, did you see he's in the comments saying that you should integrate his channel probing into mempool?
Oh yeah, we will. We totally will.
Is this a sly roundabout way to starve chain analysis? Could it be? I'm just stuck on that thought right now.
I don't think so, because I think chain analysis, like the number one thing these chain surveillance firms offer regulated companies, is basically to wash their hands of different liabilities. So they want to have like a company filled with suits that say like, oh, we're watching for criminal activity, or we're watching for whatever. So they basically want that stamp of approval as one of the key things of why chain surveillance companies have grown and thrived in this space, I think.
Would it be better for more of these companies to sprout up? like maybe off the back of the work that you're doing? Or I mean,
No, we don't want more chain surveillance companies. I will say though that chain surveillance companies are historically a massive black box, and they don't let you use their tools. A lot of times you can't even like just pay for it on the website and use it. They actually want you to like call up their sales representative and fully dox yourself to them to get access to those tools. So the more open source tools we have that allow us to visualize this data, I think is a significant improvement. But the more black box chain surveillance companies we have is, I would like to see a world where user privacy on Bitcoin becomes so easy, so accessible that these $1 billion valuations for chain surveillance companies become like a laughing stock. Like people are like, well, how the fuck were they ever worth this much, right?
yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
kind of the point. I'm not a chain analysis show. I'm like,
Yeah, we got two of them on the pod right
I'm
now.
kind of just talking about like, if there's more of them, there's less of a chance to have some massive one, and
Right.
maybe it'll all just like wash out because like it's open for everyone.
It's like what BTC Pay did to BitPay. You're trying to make that, but with mempool.
Yeah, I mean,
analysis.
But I don't think mempool space is related to chain analysis at all, right? I mean, it's a block explorer. It's not a chain analysis tool. It doesn't reach any conclusions, right? We're not saying that something is related to this, or we're not doing clustering analysis. We don't maintain our own centralized databases of like doxed addresses or anything like that. The only thing we actually identify is like mining pools, which is also public data.
Mhm.
So I would consider mempool space a privacy tool or chain analysis tool. It's just an explorer, and it's an open source self-hosted explorer. That's the main goal, right? It doesn't really compete with any advanced tools out there that actually do clustering and try to make these conclusions and point fingers, basically, right?
You're not tagging addresses as like this is possibly this exchange, even though it might be obvious in some cases. You're not putting that sort of like, I think some of the shitcoin block explorers do that, like Etherscan. They'll like label an address as like this belongs to this person or this developer or this hacker or whatever it is, which is horrible for privacy.
Yeah, the only addresses we tag are the public mining pool Coinbase tags and payout addresses. And the reason we maintain the database of those is to facilitate our mining dashboard and get statistics for the mining, which is directly related to the mempool and the blockchain, right? So it's more of a part of the network explorer itself, not any chain analysis or anything like that.
I'm aware the quality of the live chat has dropped tremendously in the studio, but I don't think that's the case for everyone watching. If it is, let us know in the chat if the quality just dropped significantly for you. We are going through some growing pains here at the park. It is a very new project. So as a result, we're learning as we go. It does look bad on yours too, but you're on the same Wi-Fi as me. Oh, fuck. Okay, well, that's not great.
Well, Tony says information wants to be free.
Does it say ones?
Okay, so and also if your name is pattern in the Matrix chat, you have to uncheck the option that says only encrypt to verified devices, because otherwise no one can see what you're saying. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Somehow chain surveillance became the main topic here. Michael, you obviously are focused massively on trying to create this circular economy for Bitcoin. There's like grassroots Bitcoin adoption where people spend Bitcoin rather than sell Bitcoin, and they earn Bitcoin rather than buy Bitcoin. How do you feel about like the current state of that progress there? Because last time you were on, I felt like there was a lot of momentum. Do you feel like it's stalled a little bit with the price crash?
No, I think Ibex can kind of speak to this too. Like we're kind of seeing like an increase in interest, oddly enough. But also there's an increase in outreach by the greater Bitcoin community, like going to the farmers markets, like going out and like talking to those business owners. That's becoming like a torch that like everybody's like carrying right now. And so I mean, I think that's really good. I'm not really seeing a slowdown. I'm just seeing it as a great opportunity to like whether the business is looking at it as like a DCA opportunity, or to acquire some Bitcoin or just to acquire new customers. I think it's still moving forward. I don't think the wind is out of the sails in the slightest. And most of these business owners like don't really pay attention to anything Bitcoin anyway. So like there's no bear market for them. It's like, I don't know, so I'm just
Right.
like hearing really about it for the first time anyway. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the other day we had during the meetup when we had 250 people here, we had 3 different merchants on premise accepting Bitcoin. We had a family coffee operation. They were awesome. We had a local burger place, and we had cocktails out of an Airstream mobile bar. I believe you offered Oshi rewards for all the merchants or some of the merchants.
yeah, so Ibex actually like sponsors some of that. So yeah, all of them. It was like 21% sats back or something, just as an incentive for people to like spend Bitcoin. But for people, most of the people, like there is a solid Bitcoin community here in Nashville. People like the last month I was here, was it last month?
He's here so often he doesn't remember when
There
he was
were
last
like
here.
double or triple the Lightning transactions that there were the previous month for the Slide Hustle
Right.
business, right? And this month, I think there was even more, without even most people knowing about the incentives at all. So
Yeah, most people weren't even using the Oshi.
they had no
rewards.
idea it was even like I was busy doing other stuff. I'm not very good at shilling, but
You're pretty good at it.
am I? Am I getting better?
I mean, you're always selling all the time.
Okay, good. But we got some of them set up. But with Ibex, some people were like just using their Lightning wallet. More and more people in the community are coming prepared to just pay with Lightning. So yeah, just really bullish on that. The businesses really loved it too.
Have you noticed like a lot of people pay specifically from Strike? That's got to be a phenomenon that's been increasing a lot lately, I think.
Yeah, and we're spoiled in the United States to have Strike. You know, like in Australia or wherever, like they don't have that. So they have to download a Lightning wallet and they have to load it up with Bitcoin and they have to go through that. But with Strike, you know, you can give your personal information and you can do this. But if you're already using debit or credit cards, you know, it's really no different. But you can now interface in the Lightning on the Bitcoin economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think when you guys think about outreach, like there's obviously a fundamental difference between using sovereign Bitcoin, holding your own keys, using your own node, and paying with Bitcoin versus using a regulated product like Strike, where you're essentially spending fiat on Bitcoin payment rails. And a lot of times, I mean, the merchant might be receiving fiat on their side too. Is it part of the same movement, or is there 2 different techniques when we think about that? Like, are we?
I think it's a part of the same movement. But I don't know, it's a blessing and a curse in Australia that we don't have Strike. Like it makes it harder for people to get onboarded, but it also means that if they are going to get onboarded, they're usually using one of these no KYC apps, which is definitely there's sort of a spectrum there. You can go from like, you know, the full self-custody, running your own node and having like a Lightning wallet on your phone through to sort of the intermediate ones like Wallet of Satoshi, where it's still custodial, but I think all you need to give them is an email address, which is pretty awesome. And then it goes to the full custodial one like Strike, where you need to do KYC, right?
Yeah, I just look at it like everyone comes into Bitcoin. I came into Bitcoin like from Coinbase. I mean, like I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I became progressively more self-sovereign. And I think getting those early touch points and whatever means possible, but constantly like striving to make people more self-sovereign and give the businesses and the consumers more options and making it easier for them to choose the more self-sovereign option I'm just really bullish on that. I'm like just really bullish on that.
I think they're definitely part of the same movement too, because like even if like you never use Strike, if you hate Strike, they still help you as a Bitcoiner. They're increasing Lightning liquidity. They're contributing to like LND and other open source projects. Like, you know, they're making Lightning easier to use. even for non-Strike users. So like it's a net benefit to everyone.
I think you could compare it to the Chivo wallet in El Salvador, right? I mean, it's totally backdoored by it's operated by the government, not even backdoored by it's full KYC, but it does introduce people to using Sats as a unit of account and the ability to send Sats.
Well, Strike doesn't use Sats as a unit of account.
Right, but I mean, if your merchant displays the menu in Sats, right? If you have the coffee is 100,000 Sats or whatever, then you'll get introduced to Bitcoin using this new payment rails. So just because you're not necessarily, self-hosting your own Lightning node, you're using somebody else's node, that doesn't mean that you're still not getting onboarded onto the Bitcoin network. You're still not being educated about how Lightning works. You're still, everyone has to start somewhere, right? And if you start with Strike, you can level up to your own Lightning node later. But it's good to push people in that direction versus just using American Express or a bank or something.
So I'm going to ask my favorite question. Let's say the merchant is using IBEX, which is a custodial solution, and the payee is using Strike, which is a custodial solution. Is that a Bitcoin transaction?
Yes.
Does anyone disagree with that?
It's a Lightning payment.
It's a Lightning transaction. Okay.
Are Lightning transactions Bitcoin transactions? What is the...
They could be.
Usually I get like a mixed bag on this answer.
It's sort of like abstracted Bitcoin payment, I guess.
Wiz rolled his eyes at me.
I think you asked me this the last time I was on.
There you go.
What was your answer?
I mean, we probably argued about it for 5 minutes.
Okay, so I have another question. If you take Bitcoin and you buy a Visa gift card with it and then spend the Visa gift card, is that a Bitcoin transaction?
No. Well, it's a Bitcoin transaction to buy the card, but when you shop at Starbucks or whatever.
Are you spending Bitcoin or are you selling Bitcoin and then spending fiat?
I would say you're selling.
This reminds me of...
Michael disagrees, I think.
So this reminds me of the conversation that I had with the 6102 back in the day about the website bitcoinonly.com. Quite often we had to have very long discussions about what is or is not a Bitcoin transaction and what is a Bitcoin only transaction. And one of the questions came up, well, is Liquid a Bitcoin transaction? And 6102 would say,
no.
It's an IOU, of course. I mean, Matt, you know.
But I think 6102 would say Strike is not a Bitcoin transaction. You would also say gift cards aren't a Bitcoin transaction.
You know a lot about what 6102 would say.
We're very like-minded.
I agree.
I think, like, if the payment is being routed over the Lightning Network, whether it's going to an individual to a custodial service or a custodial service to a custodial service, I think that counts. I think where it doesn't count if it's going from, like, let's say, we're not picking on Strike, but like a Strike consumer to a Strike merchant. And that is a like kind of an elephant in the room for me. And I really love what you're doing at SatSell too, because it's giving people more options. Because let's say they have the absolute best intentions in the world, which Jack Mallers does. I'm just saying, yeah, he does.
Right. I would back that too.
Yeah. So let's assume that getting like all of these major merchants with NCR on Strike is wonderful. It's great for Bitcoin. You can use your Zeus, wallet connected to your node over Tor. You can, yes. But the majority of people, that's a very, very small segment of the population that's going to be doing that. The majority of people, if there was incentives to use Bitcoin at these NCR merchants, would probably be using Strike. So then that is literally just Strike to
Why would they
Strike.
probably be using Strike?
Because I presume deals with these merchants that are
Well, you'll get more sats back if you use Strike. Is what you're thinking.
And so I think that's going to be challenging, because now the consumers are going to be incentivized to use Strike above all other options, because theoretically Strike, in collaboration with, say, Blackhawk and NCR merchants themselves, will have the best deals because they are Strike to Strike. And in which case, why would the everyday user use anything else? And that's not a Lightning transaction. That's a Venmo.
Well, so that's a Venmo. I mean, the current status quo, right, is like, I mean, and you hear Jack talk about this a lot, that he's he's competing with like the Visas of the world, right? He's competing with the current payment rails. If in the current ecosystem, like if you have to use one of these approved payment providers to interact with the merchant terminal, right? I think the big change with Strike using the Lightning Network and using this interoperable standard is that it doesn't matter that the merchant is a Strike merchant. You can still pay from any wallet, any Lightning supported wallet. That could even be a Cash App wallet, or it could be Moon or Zeus with your own node or something like that.
That's amazing. Just
Right, which was never possible before in the current payment rails. I think there's probably a strong argument that they could provide bigger incentives, at least soft incentives, to use it. I think there's also an argument, though, that on the sovereign side, you get this privacy bonus that Strike can never compete with, right? So there is that incentive on the other side. There's also something that's kind of interesting, which is there's nothing to say that other wallets might not get sats back as part of this process as well. And if they do in that situation, it could turn into a monetization scheme for wallets that aren't able to monetize currently. So like Moon, for instance, is a wallet I talk about a lot. Zeus is a wallet I talk about a lot. Neither of them have clear monetization schemes right now. If they pay a merchant and that merchant gives them a kickback of the processing fee, then all of a sudden those open source projects become sustainable and have a revenue stream that they never had before.
just the only caveat there is because Strike has effectively, I presume, like onboarded these merchants to their infrastructure, wouldn't they always have the advantage above all the other potential wallets and everything? So therefore, Strike would always have the higher incentives. In which case, if that is the play to get the masses, and Strike always had the highest incentives at the biggest merchants.
Well, you got to think about incentives on both sides, right? So it's not just incentives on the consumer side. What are Strike's incentives, right? And
Right.
The way I kind of look at it is Strike is going to make the majority of the revenue on the merchant side. So they want as much volume on the merchant side as possible. And they want as much volume not to use the Visa rails and the Apple Pay and all that shit. They want them to be using Lightning so that volume goes up, right? So there is a decently strong incentive for them to try and encourage Lightning payments across the board rather than just on their app. And you got to remember, their app is a KYC service. KYC just isn't only a privacy thing; it's also a friction point where you just have less users. And then on top of that, even you compare to other KYC services, Cash App is, what they have like 80 million users or something like that. Significantly more than Strike. They're the number one finance app in the App Store. There's a strong incentive for Strike to want to get that merchant adoption through Cash App users. They're not going to want to alienate that. But I don't disagree with your concerns. I mean, that is obviously, we definitely don't want to see a single provider becoming the dominant method for Bitcoin payments, because then it's more of the same. But there's probably a soft incentive too on Strike side that they don't want to see that either, because it opens themselves. First of all, they might have decreased volume, but also it creates their essential point of failure, right? Like they have a bigger regulatory target on their back. And you kind of could see that on a smaller scale. I mean, I still don't think people understand. I know Michael does, but I don't think people understand the significance of one of the wealthiest countries in the world, 350 million people, having 40 to 60% of retail accepting Bitcoin, compared to something like El Salvador, which is a country of 6 million people. It's a developing country. They don't have as much wealth there. But you saw the same thing kind of looking from the outside in. My take on the El Salvador thing is there was an opportunity there for Strike probably to be running the Chivo wallet, to be running both sides of that transaction, right? And why did they choose not to do that, right? Like the direct short-term incentive, the high time preference incentive would have been, oh, well, let's capture everything there, right? Let's get as much revenue as possible. We put the work in. Why shouldn't we get paid? But that all of a sudden, you just make yourself way more vulnerable in that situation if you're controlling both sides of that transaction, right?
Excellent counterpoint, which I fully subscribe to as well.
Dude,
Well, you mentioned
I
one
love
thing that
talking
was
Bitcoin with you.
really interesting. You said that an open source project like Moon Wallet implementing something like Sats Back will give it a revenue stream and allow these open source projects to essentially monetize their wallet code in an ethical way. And that's a really interesting discussion. For some reason, I thought Moon's business model was more about the Lightning channel opening, closing. Maybe this is also similar to Phoenix Wallet.
Sure, I'm pretty sure Moon doesn't know what their business model is right now, and if on-chain fees went up, they'd get wrecked.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I know they're working really hard on V2.
I think most Lightning wallets are trying to position themselves to get lots of users, and then they get all the liquidity. They get all the demand for liquidity. So when the user needs to open Lightning channels, they get a cut of Phoenix Wallet's probably the best example of
Right,
this.
they're like routing fee basically model.
And
The LSP model, Lightning
LSP,
service provider.
Yeah. So if you send 100,000 sats to your Phoenix wallet, you get 99,000 sats, but it opened the channel, right? And they kind of cover those fees.
To be clear, that's Moon with 2 U's. Thanks, Weird Robot. I got to meet Weird Robot in person too, which was great. He introduced himself to me with his government name, but I only know him by his NIM. So just all the freaks out there, if you ever introduce yourself to me and we've interacted with your NIM and not your government name, that's the name you should introduce yourself with. Because then I end up having like a 15-minute conversation with someone who I don't think I know, and then they tell me. Which is just, it feels like a rug pull.
He's in the chat right now, actually.
I know. That's why he said Moon with 2 O's. Just, I think he was trolling me, but it's good to know that it's 2 U's there.
Well, he was feeling you out.
Yeah.
Are you a true pleb or not?
On the panel at the meetup the other day, it was a few of the finance guys were calling it MUN over and over, but they were doing an awesome job of orange pilling people with it.
The best is meme-pool.space. Like, I remember listening to, I think it was Peter McCormick's podcast, and he had the Winklevoss twins on, and they had just given us a grant. And Winklevoss twins, like, oh yeah, we just gave a grant to Memepool. And I was like, oh. But I love those guys. But yeah.
On the open source wallet monetization stuff, like you made a good point that LSPs are a good way, but there are other ways. Like Breeze has like their little app store thing on the side where you can go to like Bitrefill and a couple others, and I think they get kickbacks there. And as well as like Sparrow's monetizing now by implementing coin join support with Samurai. It's like there are other ways to do it without like hooking into these like KYC providers and like, you know, needing like volume. You can just like add services and stuff like that. So it is like possible to do it without these, you know, strikes of the world. Yeah.
I love the concept of these new monetization schemes that are possible for open source projects because Bitcoin exists in the first place. I think podcasting 2.0, which we obviously talk about all the time, is a perfect example of that, where if I get streamed via podcasting 2.0, not only does podcast index.org, which is a community project that competes with Apple's podcast index, get a cut, so they're sustainable, but it actually opens up the door for open source podcasting apps to get revenue stream there without ads. And the big one for me is AntennaPod, which is a project I absolutely love. Is the best FOSS open source podcasting app on phones, and I know they're working on podcasting 2.0, but they've been developing that app for fucking years, and they've never made a cent. It's all been donations because there was no clear path to monetization there for them. And obviously the collaborative transaction services is another obvious one. I'm not necessarily sold on Lightning routing fees being one.
What about liquidity?
I know that's the meme. Yeah.
Are you sold on people providing liquidity as a...
It seems like it's like a very like it seems like something that gets driven down to near zero. And I don't know.
Well, sure. If the on-chain transaction fee is only a few sats per V-byte, how much are you going to charge for a Lightning routing payment?
And I feel like part of it maybe is just how new everything is, so the consumer isn't really educated. But like I was standing next to Michael the other day. I mean, there's still a lot of pain points with Lightning in general. I was standing next to Michael the other day, and we were trying to. He had set up a tip jar, a static QR code, LN URL for the coffee shop. And first of all, not all wallets support LNURL. So like if you don't want them to use Strike, they can't because it doesn't support LNURL. And I opened Breeze Wallet and I paid with Breeze Wallet because Breeze supported LNURL. And remember, we looked at the fee, and the fee was that they charged me on it was like 1,200 sats. An on-chain payment would have been cheaper for me in that situation. And it was just, I'm probably more of an educated consumer, but I imagine most are just paying higher fees and they don't even realize they're paying higher fees. And the question is, okay, so when more wallets come out, more users are using it, they're more educated. There's actually probably marketing focused around, not getting charged as much. Do those get driven down? And then we also have people like zero fee routing, whose whole routing node is zero fees, and he makes money on liquidity providing, right? Like he'll open a channel for you. So I'm not sure if like the business model of Lightning liquidity and Lightning routing is necessarily fleshed out, and I feel like there's a lot of hype there in terms of.
I think it'll eventually go to zero and then even like negative, possibly, right? Where people might pay you to use them for liquidity. We saw this in many industries like the internet now. It used to be very expensive to connect to the internet, but now you can literally go to any cafe or restaurant and it's just free Wi-Fi. And back in the day when TV manufacturers used to have to pay web browser companies to put a web browser in the TV, millions of dollars, it was all disrupted when one day Google just went to the TV companies and said, we will pay you to use Android, which contains a full web browser, which we already developed, because they want the default search engine to be Google or something.
And they want to surveil you.
Exactly. So
like you get Gmail for free because they read all your emails.
Right.
And then what happens? Everyone uses Gmail.
Works great. Yeah. And so maybe Chainalysis will start offering zero fee Lightning routing soon. Would you, or they'll actually
maybe they're
you.
already offering it.
Ooh.
I feel like routing fees are going to go down. I agree, but actually, I think that inbound liquidity is going to stay. It's sort of something that's going to cost, especially due to the limited supply of Bitcoin. There's always, and you have to have real unhypothecated Bitcoin to have that inbound liquidity. And if we expect Lightning payments to sort of take over the world, then there's going to be a huge surge in demand for that inbound liquidity.
But if you, to Wiz's point, if my goal is to sell your data or spy on you, there'd be an incentive for me to offer you
discounted
inbound liquidity to be able to see your whole payment flow.
Well, but like Lightning works in a way where you only know like the hops that you're routing, so there's not much data you can discern from there. Like, and Lightning does have problems, but as a routing node, you don't have as much information as you do as like someone who's like actually like the receiving or sender kind of thing.
I think there's a lot of timing correlation attacks, and if your node peers with every other node and checks all of the potential routing capacity on every single node, you could see when it changes and then kind of draw conclusions from that, right?
Well, I had Tony on twice this past week because whenever Tony's in town, I try and have him on as much as possible. And, he's been attacking Lightning nodes, including my own, with privacy attacks. And one thing he mentioned that was kind of interesting is that there could become a market where, okay, so your payment goes through 2 routing nodes and you control 1 routing node and you want to know the full payment flow. So you actually pay sats. There's like a business case that you pay sats to the other routing node to get more information, which is kind of cool. Dark, but cool.
Yeah. And from my perspective, right, like, again, I'm not going to pick on Strike or Ibex because those are probably 2 of the products that I show the most for new consumers and new businesses. Like it is really great as an entry point, but like you were saying, Wiz, I guess maybe like I don't even think Ibex and Strike actually have a channel between one another, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
There's no way they don't.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Anyway, but we won't get into it. But let's say
they do. They just didn't tell Michael.
Yeah. Maybe there's a time correlation. So like Strike could be like, hey, we know this user that paid this, and we know, or whatever. Maybe they don't know it went to Ibex, right? Because they don't have a channel, right? Let's say. But that data is valuable, and Strike could be like, yeah, this user, hey, do you have any matching like timestamps from here for this amount or whatever? And then they could basically sell each other data and figure out things. Just food for thought. What you were saying, I guess, with Tony,
Right.
there's a corporate level of that for sure, obviously. So
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically on the privacy side of Lightning, there's still a lot of work to be done. Tony was in the chat earlier. You said, I thought your favorite question is, are we even operating in an adversarial environment yet with Lightning? I would say to Tony, I have many favorite questions. So as freaks know who listen to the podcast. But
and real quick, so we were talking about the tip jar thing.
yeah, hit us with
That's
the
a
tip jar
guy,
thing.
Topher in Austin.
Right.
Sats4.tips. It's really cool. There's a big
Sats number 4
dot
tips.
Okay. And
another name that's hard to say on a podcast.
Yeah. And just some clarification, right? I think something went down on his end, but and then he got it back up and he had some channels open.
Yeah, just to the freaks that are like, oh, Matt, you used Breeze to do it. Well, first of all, Breeze failed the first time. Then we messaged him and I asked him if he needed inbound liquidity. So then I opened Zeus and sent him inbound liquidity, but that channel failed. And I was like, you should probably restart your node. Then he restarted his node. Then I opened a channel to him. And then I paid for Breeze to make sure it still worked. So just for the record there.
Still working things out. But
Yeah.
like the beautiful thing about this is there's some businesses in Austin that are accepting Bitcoin, and the tip problem is a massive problem. Like the UX of it, like it's
Right.
a big problem. And he just like got to work and he just started doing it. And we're like collaborating on different things that we're all learning. And like, so anyway, I just wanted to give like credit where credit's due to him. That's his product.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's open source, I believe, as well. So
It runs on the back of LN Bits, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Which is also a great project. And then just in general, like, so the IBEX payment terminals right now, they don't have a built-in tipping. So like when you pay with a credit card, you're used to seeing the constantly increasing percentages that pop up, like, oh, do you want to give 20, 25%, 30%? It's like they're always playing a mind game with you, I think. But IBEX doesn't have that. So it's just straight. And it's one of the biggest complaints I've seen with US merchants is it doesn't have that. And it kind of makes sense that it doesn't have it because in Latin America, that tipping culture doesn't exist, right? In the US, we decide that we're not going to pay service people to live. So they have to rely on tips. So tips become almost required. But my understanding is the IBEX team is releasing a tip integration within the next couple of days. So that should probably at least make onboarding IBEX merchants interesting. And also the IBEX model is kind of interesting that it is custodial service, but their base level package, if you don't convert to USD, is no KYC, and they just batch all your transactions and send it to you on chain at the end of the day and settle on chain, which, is might be questionable from a regulatory perspective. We'll see. You never know what the state wants to do. They kind of just do it. But until then, like, that's a pretty cool trade-off balance, I feel like, for a merchant that doesn't want to deal with inbound liquidity, right? And IBEX just takes 0.75% just off of every transaction.
0.5 now.
It's 0.5.
0.5.
See, as I said, the fees are just getting driven down and down and down.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So like in theory, all you'd need to give them is an XPub.
Right.
And you could do lightning payments and everything.
Don't have to deal with liquidity. Don't have to deal with any of that.
That's pretty awesome. But yeah, I think I was thinking about doing something like that for like a SAT sale as a service, but it's kind of sketchy regulatory wise. I think the Australian government would probably come after me at some point if I did that.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to the people that just do things and don't ask
awesome.
permission and just 100%. See what the fuck happens. It takes balls. So they definitely deserve some credit for that. But yeah.
Tony says, don't worry, Michael. A check if Strike and IBEX have an unannounced channel between.
See, this is why Tony's a very useful friend to have. Also, if he's feeling very friendly, he'll add 30 gigs to your DB file on LND. And you don't even have to ask him to do it. He just goes out of his way to do it for you, which is really nice.
I'll shill a circular economy thing that's come up quite recently.
Shill it.
It's called Sat Spend, and it's by Mission Bitcoin. It's a new, it's like an Australian Bitcoin business list, and it's just a website. It's open source. I think it's his first open source project, and it's really sweet. It's like just a simple list of the businesses, and it's got some like JavaScript map that just like shows you the locations of these businesses. And I think it'd be awesome if some other cities started forking it and made a list of their cities' businesses that accept Bitcoin.
Michael's just nodding his head. He's like, "Damn, that's a competition."
It's so
It's
good.
cool in Austin. You just use the Oshi app and pull up the map to see which businesses accept Bitcoin, because every business in Austin accepts Bitcoin through Oshi. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for the shill, babe.
not every business in Austin, but every
Not
business
yet.
that
Yeah.
does accept Bitcoin is on Oshi.
Yeah.
But so here's something that I've thought
Not
about.
yet.
This.
Very good.
Like,
Bullish.
okay, so it's open source. So there's going to be an open source list of businesses. So like, is there some sort of moderation there? Like it's moderated still, right?
Right.
Because otherwise it's a Silk Road, right?
Right. So at the moment it's just a GitHub page, and I think it's it is online and in store. But yeah, you'd have to make a pull request to add a business. But yeah, the cool thing is you could just fork it, and you can make your own list, or you could fork it and make your own list for your own city, or completely change it up depending on how you want to do it. You could do like a Lightning only one, or yeah.
And please do that.
Yeah,
Like, everybody
I think
should
it's
do this in
awesome.
every city. And
Yeah.
also, like, great, that's a good database for Bitcoin companies to literally be like, hey, like let's level up on different things. Like I view it as
Good for Oshi as well. You guys can just look at the list.
well,
and be
that's what I'm
like,
saying. There is
yeah.
no real, like, there's very few lists, and if they're there, they're totally outdated. I think there's going to be a resurgence.
There's so
of
many
this, like-
outdated lists.
Yeah,
It's really bad.
so it's like a waste of time to look at most of them. It's like
So that was called SatSpend.
.com.
that's spent.
I don't. He's not on the website yet. Just go SatSpend GitHub. It'll come up. I think he's still on a GitHub.io domain.
There you go. And
Yeah,
who
that's
made
for sure.
who made that?
Mission Bitcoin.
Mission Bitcoin. If you're
He's,
listening,
an
consider
Aussie.
getting a vanity domain for that.
I think he's got one. I think he's just in process of migrating. It's very new, like literally a few days ago. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think what
Breaking.
typically happens is the merchant will start accepting Bitcoin in the middle of a bull market when the merchant is
Yep.
interested in Bitcoin. And maybe a few people will also stop by and check it out. But as soon as the bear market hits, nobody's spending their Bitcoin anymore, right? They're whipping out that credit card. So they typically just don't have any Bitcoin transactions.
I don't know about that though, because
I've been spending.
because when the price is going up, you also feel like you don't have enough Bitcoin. I'm not. At this point I've just been in Bitcoin for too long that it's just. Is it possible to be in Bitcoin for too long? That it's just, it doesn't even matter, because in either direction you have different pressures for why you might not spend Bitcoin. But I kind of come up from the privacy perspective. I preferably I'd like to pay cash. If I could pay cash, I'd pay cash. But if it's between a credit card and Bitcoin, I'd rather not have, like 45 different companies all know my purchase history. But I'm probably like a microcosm there. But I mean, I could see a strong argument that the Bitcoin price is pumping. There's people on Twitter tweeting out all caps 200K by conference day, and you're like, I don't want to buy this burger because the Bitcoin I spend could be worth double by the time the
Right.
month ends. So I feel like there could be an argument in both directions.
I always felt Bitcoin was more of a savings technology, and Lightning, or Lightning was the payments gateway. But if fiat is the ultimate like shitcoin, then I always want to dump my fiat, right? I
Right.
rarely want to hold fiat.
Right. I mean, the
Right.
conversation changes if you don't have fiat or you have a minimal amount of fiat.
Right. I've got to spend Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your income's coming in Bitcoin.
True.
Yeah.
But if your income's coming in fiat, then it's a whole different question, and that's probably just a time thing, right? Like people aren't getting paid. Not that many people are getting paid in Bitcoin necessarily right now.
I will say we saw a drop in transactions for sure.
A significant drop.
I think everybody. It doesn't matter if you have, this is just $500 million worth of Bitcoin. If it
Well, that'd
gets
be
cut in
dope.
half, it hurts. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. We did see.
Yeah, but do you think people just reduce their spending across the board?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
They're just like, oh, I'm poor now, so I'm going to spend less.
very good point.
Like they
Yeah,
probably spend less fiat too.
absolutely.
Because like so like the way I kind of look at it is like it's all the same pool of money, right? So like if you're spending fiat, you're not stacking with it. You're still spending Bitcoin. Like when people say like, oh, like Laszlo like spent $10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas, it's like, okay, well, like if you bought pizza that year too, like you also spent 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas. You just didn't even have the wherewithal to know Bitcoin exists or invent GPU mining, but that's a whole different. Right? Like if I buy a burger for $10 or I buy a burger for what the fuck is it now? Like 40,000 sats, right? It's still the same 40,000 sats opportunity cost that I'm spending, but maybe it's still a psychology thing and people don't really think about it that way.
Yeah, not yet. But hey, we got more sats revenue.
Now you also have to make a similar evaluation when you spend fiat if you have like Japanese yen or euros or US dollars, because the even the fiat currencies are tanking so hard, right?
Well, not the dollar.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it is.
Dollar's bullish right now.
Are you a USD maximalist?
No, not at all. Dollar's a shitcoin, but it's been pumping because of the dollar milkshake theory. It's turning into actually playing out in real time, which is that the dollar is the strongest shitcoin out of all the shitcoins. So as everyone's fiat is, as there's panic in all the other fiat markets, they're flooding into dollars. So dollars are going to be the last to get hit hard. And you see the inflation rates and all the other currencies tend to be a lot higher right now. It's like this. I mean, everyone should go read Mandibles. But
It's on my list, man. I've heard it.
Marty still hasn't read it. He says like he might as well have read it because I bring it up so much. But Wiz, I have a question for you, since you've been in Bitcoin since we're in diapers.
It's not true.
What do you think? Like, is this whole circular economy thing just there's some resemblance to like the 2013 to 2015 era where merchants kept adding Bitcoin support and they were just automatically dumping it for fiat through BitPay and other services. And that kind of stalled, and it was like a big hype thing, and then it stalled and failed. Like, is this time different, or are we just
Well, of course, this time is
spinning our
different.
wheels?
I mean, now we have Lightning, right? Now we have all these other payment rails, merchant processors, BTC Pay service.
So you think Lightning is the game changer?
Absolutely. Lightning is a game changer. It allows you to make very minimal security trade-offs for instant. Like, you're no longer waiting for like zero comp stuff that could be double spent. You get that instant, how does Jack Mallers put it? Cash finality.
Cash finality.
He's
Right.
good.
Cash
He's
finality
good at
on an
that.
open monetary network.
Exactly. And that is a game changer, right? That's huge. And there's
I fucking love open monetary network as a term, by the way. I just use it in my day-to-day life. It's great.
No, yeah, he's great as a hype machine. But to answer your question, I mean, I remember in like the 2013 era, there were a ton of merchants that would just accept zero conf, right? Everyone had like a wallet app somewhere and on an old iPad or something, and they were just kind of trusting that the merchants weren't going to run off, which it was a reasonable thing. But for example, one bar in Tokyo, I think they were actually letting people, like, they're like, whatever cash they had in the register, they'd be like, oh yeah, just send us the Bitcoin and we'll give you the cash. And of course, they're probably taking like a 10% cut. And one day when the mempool got full, someone's transaction got purged out of the mempool and this bar got screwed over for several $1,000s.
Wow.
And they learned really quick that zero conf was not secure. But now using Lightning, they would be able to do such a transaction if they so desired, and if the government didn't shut them down for doing such trades like this. But I mean, it is a huge game changer because you have this instant cash finality, right? Not to mention all the BTC Pay servers, the new wallets, everything we didn't have in 2013, basically.
Yeah, it used to be a lot of work to like, you'd have to like monitor the, like implement your own wallet and do all that stuff. Now it's just like, call IBEX API, or or like even doing your own Lightning implementation. Like looking into LND is extremely easy. So it's not like a terribly hard thing anymore.
No, you do Lightning only. We do Lightning only, but inevitably, like, there's going to be transactions which are kind of going to require on chain, but those can like be okay if it's a transaction where you can wait a while for the confirmation because it's not going to be, the services aren't immediately rendered. Then like, I almost look at it like we get merchants and it's like Lightning only, but there's some tools we're going to have soon for like higher purchases where on-chain is going to be an option if the Lightning payment fails. We won't know if it failed, but if like they're sitting on there for a while, like we'll know, like, all right, hey, try on-chain. Like,
It's sometimes worth it as well, right? If the payment's big enough, I think the fees on chain can be lower than the parts per million, whatever the fees are on the channels. They can actually add up quite a lot. If you're paying like whatever, say it's $1,000, it might be like $10 as a fee. Whereas if you do it on chain, it might be like 10 cents. So sometimes it's actually still beneficial to use on chain, at least at the moment.
So Wiz, I had you on the show a bit ago. I don't know how to keep track of time anymore.
Yeah, it was a few months ago.
So it could have been no, but before that, when the fee market was pumping, and I said something that you agreed with, which was that transaction fees on chain are designed to pump forever.
Absolutely.
I mean, 1 sat per byte is been working pretty well lately. I feel like Catan dunked on us pretty hard on that one. Do you still believe that, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
I think I still believe
the
it.
block subsidy reward will go to zero. We need transaction fees to pay for the mining.
Well, that's not a good reason.
You're saying that
That's like the wrong. That's the wrong.
well, we're
I
seeing,
think the better argument is, okay, so if Bitcoin becomes the money of the world, there's only a scarce amount of block space. So if more people are using it and more money is being transferred on it, fees should go up. Right.
At the same time, though, people are also creating more efficient ways to use the scarce space in the Bitcoin blockchain, and Lightning is a good example of that. But even things like native SegWit addresses or Taproot, which also can save a lot of space. So while the demand is constantly rising, people are also constantly optimizing and becoming more efficient. So there is some Nash equilibrium, right, where the market demand and the scarce supply will always kind of be trying to find this perfect balance. And up until, I guess, last year, or I guess December of 2020, we never really saw that sustained high fee environment. I mean, it was a good 6 months or so where the mempool just didn't clear, right? And now that we're back to this regularly clearing type of fee market environment where, okay, maybe the mempool didn't clear out for a day or two, but it will clear out on the weekend, most likely.
It's been pretty high lately. Look at it now. It's like, yeah, it's definitely up.
I mean, 1 sat per byte cleared in one block, next block last night. So,
Oh, wow. Nice.
because I actually, like, we had this discussion drunk last night at like 11 p.m. So I checked Wiz's mempool, and that's what I'm going to call mempool.space from now on. It's just Wiz's mempool.
I'm gonna hop to do demo day real quick.
Yeah,
I'll be back in 10.
sounds good. Michael's going to go upstairs to the event space to demo Oshi, and then come back to the studio. Ben, you've been kind of quiet. I mean, there was a lot of talk there about basically the big difference this time is Lightning. And I have noticed that a lot of the circular economy pushes, a lot of the merchant pushes have been Lightning focused this time. Are most people that spend Bitcoin in person going to be using Lightning going forward, or is there still going to be on-chain obviously there's still going to be on-chain transactions, but like how much is that going to be? Like is that where we're going? Are we going to a Lightning focused future and payments?
For the future, we will have to, just because of like the fee market and
well, let's say the fee market doesn't go up. Is there still a strong argument that Lightning provides better UX?
Instant cash finality.
And yeah, so on the securities perspective, like, yeah, but the thing is also, it's like 99.9% of users don't know if they wanted to double spend, they couldn't, because they don't know how.
Well, actually now Blue Wallet has a nice cancel feature.
That's true.
Yeah.
So maybe you can with that. But I think Lightning does have that little better UX where you get this invoice, you pay it, and it's not payable twice. You know, you can't have any of those.
Has the amount built into it.
The amount's built in, all that stuff. But
the sender gets decent privacy improvement.
Yeah.
You don't it's hard to tell what the UTXO was that paid it.
Yeah. But I mean, like today, like I think Bitrefill released that like 23% of their Bitcoin transactions are Lightning. The other 77 are on chain. So like there still is a lot more on chain use, and at least for payments in that regard. So it is like a bigger thing today. And I mean, I think for one, it's just because like most users go to Coinbase or like Gemini or something like blockchain.com wallet. It just doesn't have Lightning support. So they just don't have the option. And so like, you know, a lot of these people aren't just using tools that have Lightning yet. And like, they just want to, you know, copy paste a thing or scan a QR code and pay it. And so I think like Lightning will be the future, but we're just got to get more of these like shitcoin tools to adopt it, because that's honestly where most people start out.
So like you're one of the co-founders of the Bitcoin company. You guys only accept Lightning, right?
And we have credit card payments, but it's in like heavy beta.
Wait, so you accept credit card payments and Lightning, but not on-chain?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Why?
Because on-chain is a whole host of issues where, like, say they send the wrong amount, what do we do? Do we give them a gift card that's like the wrong amount?
right.
Do we we can't really send back the money, because like if they withdrew it from like Coinbase, like, or just depositing some random Coinbase address,
Right.
Or if it doesn't confirm for ages and the
Yeah,
price
yeah.
changes and like
Yeah, so like, and like what we could do is like, it goes out, we instantly hedged, but like, if it gets confirmed 2 weeks later, then maybe, we could have gotten fucked. Or they double spend it and then we hedged for no reason and could have lost money there. So like there's lots of problems, and it's like, it's kind of a solvable problem, but it's just like, we've been trying to build fast on other things, and like, the largest payment you can do with us is $1,000. So that's mostly fine with Lightning. So that's mostly the reason we haven't decided it. But I have gotten like tons of requests to add in on-chain support. It's just it's a lot to do.
Do you think you guys will add on-chain support at some point?
Yeah, eventually we will, but it's like we just gotta we're finishing out like our loyalty platform, then we're just gonna have some free time, so that'll probably be something we add in. There's just some other stuff.
Ben looks really tired thinking about it right now.
It's a lot to think of, like, and then like talking to Price, being like, oh, what comes up with all these edge cases. I'm like, I don't think users know how to do that, but it is something we need to worry about and stuff like that.
I mean, presumably, I wonder if anyone at this table disagrees with the concept that like Bitcoin users in 10 years if things go right, they shouldn't know if they're using Lightning or on-chain or whatever thing gets invented between now and
Right.
10 years from now.
there's some
They're just paying Bitcoin.
Right. And there's actually some 2-in-1 QR code. I don't know if it's a BIP or like you have
BIP21.
BIP21. It's like your Lightning QR code and an on-chain QR code, sort of both combined in one.
But it's really an on-chain QR code with a Lightning payment
Oh, is it?
built into it, because it needs to be. The whole point is that it's backwards compatible. So you can't have like it's like that meme where you have like, oh, I'm going to fix the standards problem by creating a new standard. The key is that old wallets, if they only support on-chain, can scan it and they don't even know the Lightning part exists.
Yeah, it's weird too, because we have that. We can also use a Lightning invoice, which you can encode a fallback on-chain address in. So you can do like,
but that's not backwards compatible.
Yeah, that's the thing. But you can do like the Lightning first version versus BIP21 is the on-chain first version. But yeah, no one. I don't think any wallet supports the fallback address. TBC does.
I mean, that's like always. That seems to be like the reoccurring issue, right? Like I'm a crazy person, so right before we jumped on this, I did a 2-hour podcast with NVK for his podcast, and we were talking about BIP47 reusable payment codes. And like one of the biggest use cases for BIP47 reusable payment codes to me is accepting donations, because you can just post this static QR code and you have reasonable privacy guarantees because you're not reusing addresses. You don't have to worry about inbound liquidity or any of the things on Lightning. But when it comes down to donations, you want as little friction as possible if someone's going to send you money. Otherwise, they won't send you money. And then it comes down to wallet support. How many wallets support it, right? And BIP47, the two big wallets that support it right now are Samurai and Sparrow. And so like if the user doesn't have one of those wallets, like their payment fails, right? And you don't want payment failures. So I feel like when we think about a lot of these things, it either cannot rely on getting these wallets to start supporting it. I mean, I was talking to the guys from Bitrefill, and like some of the most common wallets that are used on Bitrefill are like Trust Wallet from Binance, which no one should use, Exodus, which is closed source that no one should use, blockchain.com, which is just a piece of shit wallet that nobody should use, right? And like, so if you're relying on like the most popular wallets on Bitcoin Twitter are not the most popular wallets. So if you're relying on those wallets to support some new standard, probably not going to work out well for you. So then you probably need some kind of incentives that lead to integration or not have the need for that integration on the sender side in the first place.
Right. And that even shows up in Lightning. Like that was one of the reasons that they gave for why Lightning payments, like Ben was saying, that Bitrefill only, I think 5% of their payments are Lightning payments, which was actually super surprising to me. Like that's crazy.
23% of their Bitcoin payments.
Right.
But
They got a whole bunch of altcoins in there as well, or shitcoins, and that, their reason for that was that, like, if you go on the App Store and you search Bitcoin wallet, like, it comes up with all those crazy ones, like Trust Wallet and like blockchain.com, and not the wallets that actual Bitcoiners are sort of using and suggesting to each other.
Did you just insinuate that you know what an actual Bitcoiner is?
No. Not going to try.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of pain points here.
I'm curious too, like because one thing that Bitrefill does accept is zero conf Bitcoin payments, and like they're
under a certain amount.
Yeah, and they're one of the only people that do that. So I wonder, like, if they remove that, would the number of Lightning payments increase?
Well, they always say that the majority of their transactions are zero conf on chain, which is always surprising to hear, right?
Well, they have some kind of like fraud detection algo, right? Like they do, like, it depends on the amount. It depends on if the transaction is flagging RBF. It depends what the fee rate is. It depends what the state of the mempool is. And they decide if they issue or not based on that, is my understanding. Which is clever.
They basically take the mempool space suggested fee, and if yours is like much lower than that, then they'll wait for confirmation. But if it's within the, they have a high confidence it's going to be confirmed in the next block or so. And I think they actually specify, like, if you want your gift card right now, you have to have RBF disabled. It has to use at least 127 sats per byte or whatever the next block fee is. And, a few other criteria. It can only be sent from certain wallets that do this properly, but they will give you that gift card right away. Yeah, if you check all the wallets. But most wallets enable RBF by default, right? So that's,
Yeah.
Well, I don't think like does blockchain.com and like Exodus, all those shitcoin wallets, I don't think
it works great on the really shitty wallets.
Yeah.
Like blockchain.com, like no RBF support.
Yeah, but that's their main volume, right? Or those
overpays the fees like crazy. That's their bread and butter, huh?
So Ben, we've been going for an hour and 12 minutes. Forget Bitcoin payments for a second, or think of Bitcoin payments. If you could talk about one thing right now, what would you want to talk about?
I think Lightning privacy is like what I think about most nowadays. It's like you had Tony and Paul on last week, and
the freaks in the comments was like, every time you talk about Lightning privacy, I just get discouraged, and demoralized. And I don't want I know we like to dive deep here on Dispatch. I don't want people to get like frustrated or disenfranchised about it.
It's a call to action.
Yeah,
and it's help.
Like, we talk about like all the problems with Lightning privacy, but it's like your other options are on-chain Bitcoin, which is worse, or a credit card payment, which is 10 times worse, or like cash, but
which is great.
Yeah, but you can't, you can't buy a cold card with cash or something. So
I mean, you can at Bitcoin Park.
All right, come to Bitcoin Park, but you got to fly here, buy gas. Good luck. But yeah, so I think like Lightning's a humongous leap forward in privacy versus on-chain Bitcoin, but there's lots of problems that you guys covered last time with like timing analysis, and you can get their node ID and see their on-chain UTXOs, and Tony's finding everyone's private channels as well. So there's lots of problems, and we've been kind of just like going through different ways. Like,
I like how that's just a bullet point. Like Tony's finding everyone's private channels.
It is.
Presumably, there's other people doing it as well besides just Tony.
And that's the real heroes, right? Is because the chain analysis companies are probably running all the routing hubs, and NSA is in all the choke points. But the real heroes are the ones that publish the open source tools or are totally transparent about this, and so you can get a small hint of what's actually going on in the background.
Yeah, like kind of like we were talking about earlier, where like mempool space will like it'll have like a lot of the tools that these chain analysis companies are using, but I can now go see for myself like, oh, this is how doxed I am, I need to fix that. And I think that's like really going to be powerful. And like with Lightning privacy, there's still lots of unsolved problems. Like Tony's calling out Vortex, which is a project me and Dregs are mainly working on, where basically lets you like open Lightning channels in a coin join, and like that's gonna be like a big step forward because like I built this out of necessity for myself because I run the service OpReturn bot, which lets you get an OpReturn transaction on chain, and you can just dox any of my on-chain UTXOs by paying like 5,000 sats. So my on-chain privacy is fucked in that regard. So I was like, well, we need to make a tool to fix this. So that was my attempt at that, and it's actually useful. So hopefully getting that out soon. But the idea is like it's Taproot lets us have Lightning channels and on-chain transactions look the exact same. So it's like build a tool that lets you actually hide them all together. And I don't know, coming soon. But
Start using Taproot now so that all your spends may or may not be a channel open, and then when you do go and make a channel open, no one will be able to spell the difference, and it helps dilute. It's like an anonymity set for like on-chain, like Taproot addresses.
Yeah, but the anonymity set right now is like 12 people.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Get it up. You better be using Taproot addresses.
Yeah, Nick is just trying to increase his anonymity set. Switch to Taproot.
Please help me.
Right. Yeah.
It is like I really hope Taproot can take off because like it's a little scary because SegWit had this huge economic incentive to use it where you save like 30% in fees like on average. So like even Coinbase adopted it, but
it took them years.
It took them years, but they eventually they like money, so they did it. But there's not many economic incentives for using Taproot, especially for these beasts like Coinbase. Like Coinbase will probably never use something like Schnorr and Musig because Ethereum doesn't support it, so they want all their shit coins to use the same signing mechanism. So they're just going to use MPC. So they'll probably never use that, and then there's no economic incentive to switch over really.
It like a multi-sig, like a Musig is it should be smaller than like a traditional multi-sig, right? With like 5 or 6 signatures in there.
But Coinbase uses a different kind of multi-sig. They use like the ECSA version of Musig.
Right.
So they have like it looks like one key, one signature, but there's many keys, many signatures in the background.
Mm-hmm.
It's just much fancier cryptography that
it's a mess.
But it works with shitcoins.
It works with shitcoins.
That's the key. They want the
key.
To their stack. That's Bitcoin only companies do have that advantage.
Yeah,
is that they're actually able to do more Bitcoin native things because they're not focused on shitcoins.
Yeah, and like it was a few months ago, but Binance like had a major vulnerability in their version of that, and I'm not sure if they lost funds or not. But like there's a price that they've paid there where like they had a vulnerability in their multi-sig setup, so it is a problem. But like Binance has ungodly amounts of money, so they don't care.
What about this question? Because I was thinking about this question from Cryptopolis via Twitch. He says, can you choose how many jumps or routing channels you want there to be between someone you're paying, or at least a number to help with privacy? This is an interesting topic to me. Is this pathfinding? This like usually a Lightning wallet is trying to find the shortest, lowest fee path, but that's not necessarily the best for privacy.
Yeah, like I mean, technically you can, like the thing is though, how well does your wallet let you do that? Like you can like manually code like I want to use this route to pay this payment.
Do any wallets let you manually specify like number of hops? Or
like in a UI, not like adjusting
so.
The fucking code.
It'd be cool though, wouldn't it? It'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The thing is like it's like pathfinding is a hard problem normally, so you're not going to be able to manually do it.
Right.
It's like 1 or 2 hops.
So like if you had like a slider, or it's like
never less than 2 hops or something.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's at least this is based on Tor, right? And I think Tor started with like 3 hops is generally like good because like at each stage, people don't know if they're like the start or the end or the middle. Yeah, I think 3 is what Tor came up with. It's like a good sort of number. I don't know if Lightning.
Everything has trade-offs, right? Like I was talking to Tony about this the other day, and he was like, so then it's not just fees, right? It's also payment reliability, because as you add hops, more likely to have a payment failure. Right. And then the other thing is like the time to make the transaction. Like I fucking love Zeus, but if I'm in front of an IBEX terminal trying to buy a beer, and I open up my wallet, and it's not even Evan and the rest of his team's fault. It's just like the way it connects to the node and everything. Like there's so much time that goes there. And I always say my same joke while like the circle's going around. I was like, this is the future of payments.
I literally did that the other day. I was like, it took forever, and I was like, do you know why that took forever? She's like, no. I'm like, well, my phone talks to my laptop that's under my bed in Texas.
Like, isn't that cool? This is the future of
Yeah,
payments.
she's like, that's so cool. I'm like, thanks, and then walked away. But like,
Payments still
I
spinning.
wasted a minute of her time.
I guess one advantage of that is like in this world where we've increasingly had less and less human face-to-face interaction, the payment is so slow that you're forced to have face-to-face interactions with the merchant.
Keep the small talk going while your payments like spinning around in circles.
Yeah, that's one of the trade-offs of Lightning versus other layer 2 networks like Liquid or something, right? That actually just uses a blockchain, so it just works and instantly.
Wiz, why does nobody use Liquid?
Because the mempool's empty.
I use Liquid. Satsail uses Liquid for one feature, but it's the USDT, the fiat, the shitcoin. So yeah.
I mean, Liquid has a number of trade-offs against Lightning, right? I think another important piece of infrastructure, which nobody has really made well yet, is a trustless swap between Lightning sats and Liquid sats, so that you could go between different layer 2 networks without touching the base chain. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
At the last,
Or at least trust minimized. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, there are some like centralized services, like all the new shapeshifts that have popped up.
Shift, yeah.
Yeah. Like fixed float and stuff where you can do.
But it's fully trusted, right? Like you just send.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's a middle ground between trustless and that.
But it should be possible to do an atomic swap, right?
Yeah,
It should be completely possible.
The cryptography
at the Bitcoin plus hackathon, someone built a thing where you like did a Lightning payment, it did like a Liquid contract, and it submarine swapped it back out. So it was like fully trustless, and
that's cool.
I don't think anyone's ever going to use Liquid.
Yeah, like it's a.
I'm a Liquid bear.
He's just trolling me now.
I'm one of the best shills in the space, and I tried for a couple months to shill Liquid, and it just didn't happen. I'm completely bearish.
Just wait until the fee market gets established.
Yeah,
people will be using all kinds of layer 2s. They'll be doing Cash App to PayPal to Venmo. Like,
I could see it being bigger. Like, and they're kind of going for that sort of like finance. Like, if you're doing arbitrages and stuff, you want to pay lower fees, you want faster. What are the block times actually on Liquid?
1 minute.
1 minute, yeah. So it's much faster.
Yeah, and it's great because there's like one transaction in each block.
And it's more private as well. So
I'm always surprised no one's built like a coin join thing on there because like you have the confidential.
So I have a theory on that.
What is it?
I think the Federation members are concerned about upsetting the regulatory beast, and that's why there's no user-focused privacy tools on Liquid. I think it's actively discouraged.
No,
because it seems too obvious.
It
seems too obvious.
First of all, the Federation members, most of them are.
One of them is Wiz.
Yes, I am. But no, I mean, like anybody can make anything on Liquid, and
we have Corey in the chat saying he bought a BIS shirt with Liquid once.
That's true.
I bought a Blockstream hat.
There's dozens.
I remember. Thank you, Corey, for that.
I got a free B hat token from Blockstream, and I cashed it in for this hat, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it's great spending shit coins.
Right, you'd rather you get a B hat token on Liquid than some ERC20 or something, some shit coin.
So you don't think it's so why don't we see like confidential transactions are cool, but they're not, without extra tooling, they're not enough in terms of privacy, especially if you don't have users using them.
Yeah, obviously you need a critical mass for the anonymity set if you were to do a coin join on Liquid or something like that. But I think
we have Seared Salmon saying he bought a beefsteak ticket with Liquid.
No, it's not that the Federation members don't want to have coin joins. They can't dictate what type of transactions happen on the network, just like Bitcoin miners don't really know what's going on. And especially with confidential transactions, the network functionaries don't even know what they're putting into the blocks, really. I mean, it could be a shitcoin, it could be Liquid Bitcoin, it could be anything, right?
One of the bigger issues, I think, with Liquid is... first of all, I think you kind of nailed it with it is hard to go back and forth in a trust minimized way, definitely in a privacy preserving way. And particularly that's like a chicken and egg thing because there's just not that many users as well. But the other thing is, like, I think as Bitcoiners, like a key thing that we should always be focused on is aligned incentives. Like I think a lot of the things that are wrong with the world come down to flawed incentives. And one of the reasons I'm so bullish on Bitcoin is because it has Bitcoin, the base layer, has such a strong incentive model, which is literally everyone on the planet should act as greedy as possible. And as a result, Bitcoin will be robust and successful, which is like the only clear assumption you can make about people. I have a lot of friends and family that I love dearly, but the number one thing you can guarantee about people is that they're going to act in their own self-interest and they're going to be greedy. On Liquid, if fees only go to Blockstream. There's no fees right now, basically. But the way it's set up, they only go to Blockstream. To be a Federation member, the most risk is on the Federation members. They're integral to the whole system, and there's no real incentive on their side to be a Federation member, right?
I think you're talking about the functionaries, right? So there's probably like 60, 65 members in the Federation, but there's only 15 functionaries. And those are the actual miners or block producers, whatever you want to call it. They're the ones who actually control the keys to the 11 and 15 multi-sig
Right.
holdings of the Federation.
On their HSMs.
Exactly. So you're right. The functionaries run the network. And they control all the keys. What's Seared Salmon saying?
They're talking about Fediments, and
Yeah, I was just
our
about to say,
Fediments basically make Liquid obsolete.
it's like Liquid 2.
Yeah, I've been hanging out with Justin Moon a bunch, and like he's been working on Fediment a bunch, and that's kind of like how he pitches it. He's like, this is like Liquid done right, where instead of having these 1 minute block times, and there's just this one federation, and setting up a new one's a lot hard. You just have this one that's like basically instant payments, and it's Lightning interoperable like natively, and you can do all these fancy stuff like
just to be clear here, on Liquid we only have a single federation, but in Fediments it should be easy for there to be many competing federations that are all interoperable with each other.
I mean, people could spin up their own Liquid if they wanted to right now.
I don't think so.
Well,
Really?
you could. It's just
Isn't like the
work.
back end not open
Closed
source, or like why aren't there more liquids?
It's
Why do we only have one Liquid network?
That's just
so
interesting.
that's a good question, right? And that's actually how I joined the Liquid Federation to begin with, is because I basically tweeted at Adam back that I'm just going to make my own Liquid Federation, call it something else, and then he said, "Well, why don't you just join us?" Right?
Regulatory capture.
But the functionary code is actually open
Now
source.
we know.
I think it's just not shared outside of the Federation, if that
Oh.
makes sense. So it's
It's a closed source.
open source. Like I think it's even GPL license. Like I have
wow.
the source code. It's just not published anywhere, maybe, or something.
Interesting.
But yeah, like Matt's right in the sense that the backend code is not like available on GitHub easily, but all of the
It's not easy to run. If you want,
it requires specialized hardware, right?
Like,
there's
in my-
hardware security modules.
in my head, there's like two things. Like if you want a federated model to work well in a post Bitcoin world, it should be, first of all, it should be easy to spin up your own federations. We should have competition among federations. And the second thing is they should all be easily interoperable with each other without like calling someone on the phone or having them like come down
Right.
and have a coffee with them or something.
And I think that's probably the future of all of these mints and federation models, is that you're going to have an organization of either entities or individuals. Maybe BISC is another good comparison, right? Where you have a bunch of people who want to operate something as a federation, but you want to spread the trust around. You want to spread that risk around. And this community of users is they have their specialized use cases, whether that be op codes or smart contracts, whatever they're doing. And the holdings would just be part of that federation. And then, like you said, Matt, you want to like be able to just teleport those sats to another layer 2 federation or something. It'll be really cool to see what the future brings when all these mints and everything starts coming out. Liquid is just one of the first ones, right?
I've been getting a lot of shit because I'm pretty bullish on Fediments and the team that's working on Fediments. Which rightfully so. I love getting
I've been in a few arguments about
critical
it, and
feedback.
It's good.
But I would say I think it's almost a distraction to compare it to Liquid. I think it should be more comparable to a fully custodial Lightning wallet, like Wallet of Satoshi, which a lot of hardcore Bitcoiners use, even though it's fully custodial and you have to trust them with both your funds and your privacy. While Fediments offer and why do they do that? They do that because it's easy. They don't have to run their own node. They don't have to worry about liquidity management. They don't have to worry about channels. They don't have to worry about any of that shit. They just press receive and they press send and it fucking works, right? With Fedimints, you have all of a sudden you have a wallet that's as easy as a wallet of Satoshi, but you don't have to trust the custodians with your privacy. So it's strictly better. Your anon set is basically how many people are using that wallet is your anon set. And then on the custodial side, you have a reduced custodial risk because it's a multi-sig instead of a single sig. So the parties involved have to collude together or get forced together to rug pull you.
Right.
So it's just strictly a better wallet of Satoshi.
And like you said, Matt, because it's so open source and like it should be easy to spin up your own federation, there should be like a free market of Fedimints that were sort of competing against each other for whether it's how secure their custodian is, what like the threshold on the multi-signature is to make transactions, or what the fees are, or payment gateways. That's why I'm super excited about it. There could be a whole market of different federations competing against each other and sort of improving in all these different ways to make really good federations. But it is still custodial. So.
Right. It's definitely custodial. You have custodial third-party risk. We have Tony and Seared Salmon in the comments talking about mini simp, which is, I guess, the Fediment idea with the simplicity language on top of that. Is that a real term? Because it sounds like something that someone would say to me if they're upset with me shilling Fediments, that I'm a like a mini simp or a Fedi simp.
That was their hackathon project. They
like all the devs out there. I appreciate you guys. I try and help get you more contributors. I try and help get you more funding. I try and get you more exposure. If you ever need help naming things, just don't hesitate to reach out. I will. It is so easy to name things better than you guys. Like, no disrespect. Like, we should not. It's impossible to get bullish on something called mini simp. I'm sorry, never gonna happen.
I think the original name was Simpy Mint. If that's better,
not better. So we have Michael back in the house. He's done with his demo. He's never stopped, so he came back down to the studio. I want to transition this conversation for a second. Stable coins on Lightning. Why do we need that?
I think it's good. Like the reason I would think it's like a good thing to have is because some merchants, they're not ready to hold Bitcoin. They're not ready to receive Bitcoin and just hold it on their balance sheet. The volatility is too much for them if they've got like fixed costs of things they need to buy.
Well, I'm not asking why do stable coins have demand. I'm asking why do we need stable coins on Lightning?
Oh, sorry, on Lightning, right.
When no one uses Liquid.
So for example, on SatSale, one feature we do have is that you can receive Bitcoin Lightning payments and it automatically converts using one of those sketchy no KYC exchanges, converts it to liquid USDT. But it'd be so much better if I could do that with like an atomic swap to like Lightning USDT or something like that. Don't have to use Liquid.
Couldn't you still do like an atomic swap to liquid USDT or an atomic swap to, probably what is the most common USDT chain, like Tron or some shit?
Yeah, true. You can.
And like when you talk about stable coins, like the trust is the issuer. Like I'm pretty sure Tron could go down tomorrow and Tether would just be like, okay, if you had a Tron USDT balance, you can, reboot it on Solana or whatever. Right. And you could actually do that cryptographically. Like, okay, take your Tron key or whatever, and your Solana key is derived from the Tron key. Right? Like you could do that.
Yeah, I guess there's nothing I see that makes it like it has to be on Lightning, that it really needs to be on Lightning. And there are some people who question, like, if I'm running a Lightning node and I don't want to be, passing around all this gossip about USDT channels, I could see some complaints there being sort of legitimate for sure.
Well, I love that I have the devs trolling me in my live chat right now. We got Corey. Dude called his show Citadel Dispatch. But I do usually sit while we're recording.
Yeah.
I don't like so there's everything has trade-offs, right? With Lightning, we make certain trade-offs to reduce trust and to use native Bitcoin. It is straight up native Bitcoin locked in a payment channel. At the core, Lightning is batched Bitcoin transactions, right?
Yeah.
And the trade-off we make is a UX trade-off, which is you have to deal with liquidity. You have to have your keys always online to make transactions and receive transactions.
And you could potentially lose the channel funds if
Right.
you're unable to publish the.
Exactly. Backups are difficult. You have to be watching. You have to be watching for malicious actors that might be broadcasting old channel states. Like, we make all of those trade-offs for reduced trust and to use native Bitcoin. Why would we make those trade-offs to use a centralized stablecoin?
Right.
I think like it's really just like, why not? Like, people are using this. Like, today people want to use Tether. Like, it has like a $80 billion market cap or something. Like, there's high demand for it, and people are going to like shitcoins to use it. It's like, why? Like, people are going to give liquidity somewhere, it's either going to be Tron or Bitcoin. Why not it be Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm.
I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think it's a why. I think it's a why not. And I know, especially in places that don't have access to the dollar at all, right? Like, that's why these stable coins came up, you know, in a lot of countries that don't have the dollar, they're using like just straight up Binance. You know, they use Binance, and like the Binance, you know.
Well, the Binance has their own stablecoin too. It's a centralized issuer with a stablecoin.
Yeah. So why not just
BUSD is a
Bitcoin?
crazy story. I reckon it's sketchy as, like, I'm pretty sure Binance just bought like the naming rights from some other custodian. Like, they're not even holding the dollars. Like, there's some other company that Binance has like paid off and made it labeled BUSD. I feel like they haven't got enough attention compared to all the other stable coins. Or maybe there's something dodgy going on there.
Well, you see that why do we need shitcoins argument quite a lot in the Liquid Federation too, because if
It seems like the main value prop of Liquid is easy shitcoin creation.
Well, that's the topic of great debate, right? I mean, you'll have someone like Francis from Bull Bitcoin. He's just like the most extreme toxic maximalist. Like, he just wants Liquid for layer 2 payments. And then you'll have someone else in the Federation.
Well, he also has like, I feel like a lot of people that are anti-shitcoin make an exception for stablecoins, right? Like, doesn't he like LCAD, which is like liquid Canadian dollar?
And then but you know what you're getting into, right? It's a fully custodial, like you said, you're trusting the issuer. And you make that very clear where, okay, LCAD is issued by Bull Bitcoin, and, you know, you're trusting them. If they disappear, then your token is worthless. But the other side of Liquid is like, yeah, why do we need all these shitcoins on there, right? If it's just a layer 2 payment network for Bitcoin, great, let's do that. And then like you said, it's not a question of why, it's like, why not? Well, why not do shitcoins, right? Why not? And that's always like the slippery slope to the scams and everything. Oh, we need it for Tether, we need it for some legitimate spaceship.
This is a question I like asking people. Like, would you want the scams and the rug pulls and the shitcoins to move onto a Bitcoin layer if they could? Or would you rather that just Bitcoin is just like strictly no other assets and just Bitcoin related things?
But I think Liquid kind of proved that they won't, right? There's all of these shitcoin platforms out there that have optimized themselves for the scamming, like pump and dumps, and they've also built all this
and low
infrastructure.
fees, like low fees and
True.
shitcoins.
But they've optimized all this infrastructure, like, you know, you connect your MetaMask to this token. I don't even know, but it's all interoperable so that you can lose your money as fast as possible, right? Whereas Liquid, it's just a bunch of cypherpunks writing actual.
But someone could do it on Liquid if they wanted to, right? They could make like it's all open relatively, so they could make their own Liquid MetaMask. They could make their own Liquid like shitcoin Uniswap.
I feel like the most recent one that is like a good example is like the NFT craze or whatever, because like the Liquid guys tried to make NFTs on Liquid a thing, but instead people just use, you know, they were using ETH, and then ETH fees went up, so they chose a more centralized, cheaper chain, and they went to Solana or they went to whatever.
Right.
And that's what they were using for NFTs, and they weren't using Liquid for NFTs.
And even like where NFTs originally started was Counterparty, which is built on top of Bitcoin as well. And like same thing where like they went up a bit, but nowhere near as much as like Bored Ape Yacht Club or any other shitcoin ones.
Could one say that the reason why most of these shitcoin projects are built on the shitcoin blockchains is because they're heavily VC backed, and there's that? I mean, if they
have like ecosystem funds. They have their shitcoin that's pumping.
I mean, I agree with Wiz. It's like, well, you know, very good point. It's like, well, is it a slippery slope? And at the same time, I wonder, like, well, would it be like better? Would it be the path to like realizing that Bitcoin is the only blockchain? Like, and is that the path it's going to take? Where like you have this the Lightning Fund by like David Marcus or whatever, and so now we have like VC backing, like looking at Lightning. Is that going to bring all?
Well,
the
his isn't a
shitcoins?
fund. He has a project that got funded by like A16Z. and
Okay,
them.
is that
We don't
like
know
this-
what the project is yet.
right? Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it's shitcoins on Lightning.
right.
But
So
that's
is
just a
that
guess.
is with that sort of like backing behind it going to then bring more of the VCs in there, and then we're gonna have all these shitcoins on Lightning? Is that like? Yeah, I mean, the question is it better than them being on another chain?
Right.
I
Right. It's an
mean,
interesting question,
I
I
don't
think. It's like,
know.
would you want them to be on Bitcoin? Or do you like, if you like want everything to be on Bitcoin, does that include the scams? Or like, do you just really just want bare basic Bitcoin payments and maybe stable coins as like an exception?
I think the best situation is probably on Liquid, where you have confidential transactions, so you can't actually know if it's a Bitcoin or a shitcoin transaction, right? And then it feels much more ethical, right? Like, it's not up to me to decide that because
Right.
I can't know.
Oh,
right?
true. That's a good point.
With Taro, which is like how they're gonna do the shitcoins on Lightning, you kind of can't tell. Like, it's if you know like this is a tether like this is a tether issue where you can see like what they do, but like tracking it across the Lightning network is gonna be pretty hard. But you know, it's like I mean, it won't be as good as Liquid privacy, but it's still there. So you're not gonna be like, oh, this is 1,000 USDT payment, but you're still getting like, you know, this is a tether payment probably.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, you know, there's people want this, like people love being scammed, you know, and if they're gonna do it, like may as well like selfishly like increase Bitcoin liquidity with it. Don't promote this other, like don't scam on top of a scam on top of Bitcoin, because that increases Bitcoin liquidity.
I kind of like that.
That's what I'm leaning
I kind
to
of like
as
that
well,
quote.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that one on the soundboard. I don't think I agree with that, but I think why not just let the centralized shitcoins be centralized shitcoins and have them run the stable coins?
But who are we to decide what people use Bitcoin for, right?
So like I will go back to Strike again. So Strike launched in Argentina. They didn't have any bank account access. They had a similar concern that Nick had with Sat Sale, which people wanted USD exposure. So they used Tether, and presumably they started on ETH. Fees went up on ETH. They use Tron now. It doesn't change the trust model at all for their users. Their users have no idea what chain it's on.
Right. They're just switching.
Why does it need to be on Lightning? It just makes it to me. There's all like once again, there's just all these trade-offs we make with Lightning, and we have to accept these trade-offs because we want improved Bitcoin payments, and we want fast, we want cash finality, right? We want interoperability. We want the ability to actually verify what's going on there with native Bitcoin. So we make all these trade-offs with liquidity and stuff. We were talking earlier about the liquidity challenge, right? You're a new merchant. You don't want to use a centralized service. You want to spin up BTCPay. You want to spin up Sat Sale. All of a sudden, you need to get liquidity. If you're just accepting USDT, which there's some people that say people are more likely to spend with stable coins than they are with Bitcoin because of volatility risk, which I don't necessarily agree with, but there's a decently strong argument there, at least in the beginning, that people prefer to spend directly with stable coins. Why would that merchant go out of their way to take the trade-offs of Lightning and get liquidity if they could just accept it via fucking Tron or Solana or some shit?
Right.
Okay, well, like take like you're an El Salvadorian merchant and Bitcoin is legal tender, but you don't want to be exposed to price volatility. So you want to hold dollars. You can either use Chivo wallet, which has a conversion for you, but it's government ran. So you're just fucked. So the alternative is like, you can go to like Tron and use USDT, but now I need to acquire Tron to pay transaction fees and use the shitcoin, maybe even try to run a Tron node and, spend thousands of dollars on hardware.
I mean, you don't have to run a Tron node to accept USDT.
No, you don't,
Tron.
but you want to,
you're already trusting.
That's fair.
You're already trusting Tether.
So, okay, throw out the node part, but still, you need to own some Tron to be able to spend it and move it and all that stuff. Alternatively, you could use it on Bitcoin where you already have Bitcoin. You don't need to download a shitcoin wallet. You just, LND or whatever wallet supports it automatically. And, you're just using now dollars in Bitcoin, not having to touch anything else, learn about anything else.
I guess you did kind of touch on a good argument there, and I dismissed you for a second. That if you are using one of these, very centralized shitcoin chains, you can't really verify the transaction yourself because you're not going to be able to use your own node. Even if you're already trusting Tether, you still want to know if you actually got a real Tron transaction or not. It's not easy to run a node.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that there's an argument there.
That's kind of like, do you want to let them scam on a scam chain or let them scam on Bitcoin? And
But
also,
then-
as Wiz says, it's not even up to us. It's like it's probably it's going to happen. I
It's
think.
happening.
But I guess then the argument could be there though that to a degree, Liquid USDT solves that because on Liquid it's relatively it's not resource intensive to run your own Liquid node.
It's pretty like it doesn't take up tons of data, but like syncing a node takes forever.
Yeah, there's trade-offs like anything, I guess. Computationally expensive versus disk space expensive. But I mean, it's a hell of a lot better than
It's better than Ethereum node.
Yeah,
Look,
right.
I'm like at the end of the day, like the cool part about Lightning, the cool part about Bitcoin is that people can build whatever the fuck they want. They can use it however the fuck they want. I'm not trying to like tell people not to do something, and I can't tell people not to do something. It's just it can be frustrating as a Bitcoiner when you see dev cycles presumably getting wasted or resources getting wasted. And I use the word wasted, but like poor priorities,
Right.
right? And I just feel like stable coins on Lightning not a big priority, but maybe I'm just completely misplaced. That's why I like talking about it.
It sounds like the typical case of people trying to monetize an open source project, right? Maybe if you're somebody like Lightning Labs and you're developing L&D for free or all of these other technologies and just shipping it as free open source software, you want to make some business around it. And maybe these fiat stablecoin tokens or whatever on your technologies is part of your bigger business case, which you might have not even revealed to the public yet, right? So, yeah, does it need to be on Lightning? No, but maybe it's someone's business case to do that. And who are we to say that you can't use Lightning for this or that? I mean, you can scam people with Bitcoin without any shitcoins, right? Hey, send me 1 Bitcoin, I'll send you 2 back, right? Like you don't need anything.
People get scammed on Bitcoin all the time.
Exactly, right? So if you have good privacy, then you can't censor people. And that's kind of like the whole Liquid's goal is with the confidential transactions is that you can't really tell what's going on. So the functionaries can't really censor transactions, which is why it's a lot less, censorship risk on Liquid than even, some Bitcoin miners. If you have miners that are censoring, a group of miners that are censoring blocks, you're trusting the majority of Bitcoin miners are going to be honest, right? Or not evil. So there's trade-offs to using everything.
I think on the dev resources part too, like this could be like the best thing that ever happened to dev resources, where today, like, there's millions of like shitcoin devs because they just have all this VC funding to go and scam people. And not only are they working on their scam, but they need to improve like either like the Solana ecosystem to like have their wallet support this and all that stuff. If all those people then came and now we're working on Lightning, they first implement their scam token on top of Lightning, but say they have like routing failures, so now they need to go and improve routing payments and improve just the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Get them in the ecosystem. 100%.
Yeah.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Is like, if you have these, even if they're shitty projects at first, at least you're getting them in the ecosystem, and then maybe they realize what they're doing is stupid, it's scammy, but they're working on Bitcoin, they've got some foundations in it, and maybe they can start building something better.
Like there is mild precedent for this. Like the inflation bug was found by a Bcash dev because they're building on top of a fork of Bitcoin Core. So like if they're like working on top of our software, they're gonna find things that either they'll push fixes or find vulnerabilities and bugs. Like it could be a net benefit.
Seared Salmon thinks that's a fire take, Ben.
Good. I love you, Vivek.
Wiz, is there anything you want to talk about?
I mean, I could talk about Bitcoin for hours. I could talk about
I've got something.
mempool for hours.
Hit us.
Different pathways for new engineers and developers to getting into Bitcoin. So I'd be really curious to go around the table and sort of hear what your backgrounds are. Like, did you guys study computer science? Did you study an adjacent field? Did you just pick it up after college? What about you, Wiz? I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I quit school when I was like 14 years old to go work at an ISP.
Awesome.
Yeah, I didn't go to school at all.
And so how did you get into Bitcoin like development itself?
I'm not sure I'm even in Bitcoin development.
Right. Mempool. Mempool, like a bit building on Bitcoin as well.
I just run the servers. Like my partner Soft Simon and our team of shadowy super coders and all of our external contributors and everything. You know, it's a community project. We have lots of really cool people working on it. I just kind of coordinate or organize some things here and there and just run the servers. It's not, you know, I'm not writing the mempool code.
But you're still managing the GitHub and stuff?
I just go on GitHub and push the merge button. I don't know what's going on. When it turns green, I just push the button. So.
The only other developer at the table here is Carmen.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your answer, Carmen?
I was in the middle of college, and my girlfriend just broke up with me, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And then just started studying Bitcoin really hard, and then just kind of stopped doing all schoolwork and only Bitcoin. Later dropped out and joined SharedBits. I guess I started with Wasabi while I was in college, and then later joined SharedBits for like 2 years. And now I'm here at the Bitcoin company. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of just like, you know, just being like frustrated with college. Like I felt like I was learning nothing. And like within 1 week of like talking to Bitcoin devs, I learned like 10 times as much more as I did in college.
So the hard part is you first have to get a girlfriend, but then once you have her, you just
lose it.
Yeah.
Breaking up is probably the easier part.
Yeah, you know, do something stupid, let her break up with you, get depressed, and then you know, go crazy on Bitcoin development.
So I feel like I've heard like some misconception from people who want to start building in Bitcoin. They think they need to go do computer science or something for like 4 years and like, you know, get a whole foundational thing from scratch and figure out how a computer works from the absolute basics. But I really think it's getting heaps and heaps easier to just pick it up yourself. Like the Voltage APIs and all these APIs that are coming out, you can just sort of pull things together. A lot of tutorials online, which I think it's interesting, different ways that people can get into it.
No, yeah, my parents always get mad at me because I always tell them college is a scam, and they're like, no, it's not. And like we have like neighbors who are like, you know, they're like in their like 18-year-olds, like looking to like, they're like kind of, some of them want to be coders. I'm like, do not go to college. Like that's the worst idea you could do. Like learn like there's so much free online resources, or go to a boot camp, something like that. And they always get mad. They're like, you're gonna be a failure without college. I'm like, okay, but yeah, like it's I think like coding, like, you know, the internet made information free, and like coding is like one of the most probably the most like easiest thing to like learn online. And the beauty is too, like open source work is just like, you don't need like a 4-year degree saying like I know how to do surgery. You just like, here's my GitHub, here's, you know, thousands of contributions I've given, you know, and it's just like you have this proof of work like automatically. So it's a beautiful way that like to learn something. It's kind of unique with coding.
But... Yeah, you're right. I think picking up coding now is probably easier than ever. We even have a special keyboard for one of our developers. It's got 3 buttons on it. The first button is the Stack Overflow button. It just opens the website and browser. And the other 2 buttons are copy and paste. He's our best developer.
So I'm not an engineer, and I got absolutely scammed in college. So I went to school for business. That was fun. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to work in a cubicle. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm like, let me just get a degree in nursing. so I got scammed twice. And then I was like, well, I'm going to figure this out and travel nurse. I was an ICU nurse. I'm going to be like, all right, I'm going to find something that gets me going, like gets me passionate about it. And I stumbled across Bitcoin. And then I scanned my co-founder into helping build this product. So like you can find a co-founder and they're the engineer, they're the developer, and you just work on Bitcoin. Like, so yeah, just a little different take there. Like, I think there's a lot more people now because it's getting easier and easier to maybe get some sort of indication, at least like a year ahead, like what it might look like. And so we're having a lot more, like, I think, business focused people hop in and try things out.
Right. That's super interesting as well. Is I've seen more of those kind of people. Like they're not really like the programming, coding, computer types, but they're more like sort of business people, and they want to get into sort of doing like project management on Bitcoin. Like, how would you sort of suggest those people sort of, do you say you go to meetups and just meet engineers, or
His advice is to get scammed a couple times.
You'll get scammed in college, then because you know how you got scammed, then you find an engineer to scam and build the project for you. No, I mean, my co-founder, like that was, I've had people talk about, I don't engineer. Like, how did you build this? I'm like, I'm not an engineer either. I just had like an idea of what this might look like in the future. This is, in like 2018. And honestly, one of the first things he said to me is like, "Why don't we build this on Ethereum?" And I'm like, "Oh, don't worry. Let me get you. Let me get you." And we're like, "No, we're gonna do this on Lightning, and here's why." And then of course, like he's a fully orange pilled, and over time, like you just have to. That's the first pitch I made. We still haven't raised money. Like, and we're like, the first pitch I made was to my co-founder, to the engineer, and I'm like, "Hey, like, what do you think about this?" And he was totally sold, and we just built it together.
I can go on that too, because I was kind of the flip side of that, where Ben Price pitched me the Bitcoin company. Like I known him for I met him in like the Dirtbag chat, and then we met at BitBlock Boom in person, and went to visit him in Mexico, and then basically just pitched me for a week. Was like, this is a cool idea. I think we could build it. And by the end of the week, I was like, all right, fuck it, we'll do it. And then 6 months later, something, I was part of the company. It's just you don't need to be you need most things kind of need devs nowadays, but there isn't only developer jobs. There's much more ways to do it. If you have ideas, if they're good, people will listen. Something everyone can do.
The thing about the new people joining the space now is, like you said, there's more business people showing up, and people want to do Bitcoin businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But it's extremely hard to build a rent extraction business in Bitcoin, right? There's not a lot of ways to just be like a credit card company and take a percentage off of everything. You actually have to make a real contribution to the space. You have to have a real proof of work, something that's genuinely useful and improves the overall experience for everyone. And then maybe you can build a ethical business to monetize your project on top of that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think one of the key things as a non-dev, key piece of advice just in general in life, not only in Bitcoin, is to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up. You got to keep wanting to improve yourself, and be humble enough to realize that you don't know fucking jack shit, and that you can improve, right? Time and time again in this space, you see the people that are successful are the ones that just keep showing up.
Yeah. Showing up is half of success, right?
100%, maybe more. And you also have to have the confidence, right? Yeah, don't get demoralized about it. The power's in your hands. The power's in everyone. One of the cool things about Bitcoin, one of the cool things about open source projects in general, and the open source movement, is that it empowers individuals to help themselves, right? And to pick themselves up by their bootstraps, so to speak. And that's extremely powerful. It's extremely cool to watch so many people in the space, be successful, and watch them go on their journey. I remember when I met Carmen the first time, was in a hallway at BitBlock Boom. He was just a little fucking kid. He had no idea what the fuck he was doing, right? And now everyone knows he's the chain surveillance guy. Guys, this has been a fucking fire conversation. It's been an honor to have you all here at Bitcoin Park for this week. It's just been really fucking special.
It's awesome here. It's so sick. I'm so glad I came. It's incredible the setup you guys are going here, and same as Austin as well. It's really it's mind blowing.
It's nice to be out of Australia. Right?
Oh yeah, and there's more people at the meetup a few days ago than there was I've ever met in Bitcoiners in Australia. So it's just crazy.
It's funny, there was some Bitcoin conferences back in the day that would not have hundreds of people, but it's just an ordinary Nashville Bitcoin meetup. There's hundreds of people. It's in a bear market too, which is the most impressive, right?
It's insane.
It's pretty crazy how much Bitcoin has grown. I moved to Austin in 2020 for the Bitcoin scene. It was a major part, and our meetup was 20 people, and now we get 50 people, and we're like, wow, this is fucking no one's here. And 250 is average. So it's definitely weird how crazy things have grown in the last few years. But yeah,
I would say there's a bunch of meetups in Austin. Austin Bitcoin Club. Just I keep asking people like how many people are here for the first time, and it seems like it's half the room every time, even though the total attendance keeps going up. And again, it's like bear market, or maybe did Jack say like, is it a bear market or is it a recession? Like
that one really hit me. I was like, I had trouble sleeping.
Yeah. But so people are showing up, and we need to keep showing up and keep spreading the good word of Satoshi and keep building cool things and keep trying new things on Bitcoin.
I think that's definitely true. Like the people that like the people that show up to the bear market meetups and like the ones that don't, it's like you remember like, oh, you were here.
No, every good meme is based in reality, and like the bear markets are for building meme, like that makes sense. Like you see it's like real. People who keep going when the price is down.
Yeah, in the bull market, that's when you get all the shitcoiners, scammers showing up at the meetups trying to scam people. Yep. And during the bear market, it's just pure signal. All the noise fades away.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool.
So I know you guys do not want to stop talking, but I did a 2-hour podcast before this. It's been a very long week. We just hit the 2-hour mark. We're going to be chilling after this. So I would like to wrap up this show. I hope the freaks found it very helpful. But before we wrap up, let's do some final thoughts. And we'll start with you, Ben.
Fuck chain surveillance.
Thanks, Ben. Final thoughts, Michael.
Are you censoring us right now? We want to keep talking.
I mean, you can keep talking. I'll go get some food and just walk out and just leave you guys here if you want.
No. Yeah. My message to the freaks is like, freaking start a Bitcoin meetup if you already have one. Talk with people in your community. Assume they don't know shit about Bitcoin because most of them don't, and just start the conversation and expand outside of Twitter, and we're gonna win.
Fuck yeah. Thanks, Michael. And you're always welcome. You're always welcome to come here and talk. It's a pleasure. It's a true pleasure and an honor.
Invite. Yeah.
Nick, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Don't just go to your local meetup. Go experience some other meetups around the world if you can. If you have the opportunities, it is really incredible the connections you make. And my second final thought would be, if you're a new Bitcoiner, like wanting to start doing Bitcoin development, I've just started I've got a website, utxo.club, posting some like Bitcoin resources on there for like getting into Bitcoin development, some tutorials, some guides and stuff. And going to start a Discord, I think, and see how that goes. So yeah, check that out.
Thanks, Nick. Final thoughts, Wiz.
I think if you want to be successful in Bitcoin, you need to lower your time preference, build relationships with other Bitcoiners, surround yourself with winners, ignore the noise, focus on the signal, ignore the haters. Haters going to hate. Just keep showing up, keep working hard, build something that you want to use yourself, and be the person that you would like everyone to become, and travel the world.
Yeah. Go to all the meetups. Tony says, fuck the Bens.
Yeah, Tony's final thought is fuck the Bens, and Future Paul's final thought is he's becoming a huge fan of Nick.
Hey.
Who isn't?
Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us. I truly did enjoy it. I hope the freaks found this conversation helpful. There'll be many more Citadel Dispatches in the future. Probably many more with all the guys that are here at this table right now. And thank you all for supporting the show, whether that's coming into the comments, whether that's subscribing on your favorite platform. It's basically on every platform now, including all the podcast apps, or whether that's joining us in the live chat. I really do appreciate you all. I couldn't do it without you. And stay humble and stack sats.